So, folks, Donald Trump has decided to praise and honor Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general. Yeah, a man from New York is going to honor a Confederate general. And the first question that goes through my head is, why would someone from New York want to honor a Confederate general? And folks, there's only one reason that I can come to, and I know it's going to make a lot of people mad, but brace yourself. You know where I'm going with this, because it's obvious. It's the racism. What else would it be? Why else would a billionaire from New York who would not wipe his nose on a Southerner's Sunday best, why in the hell would he praise a Confederate general if it wasn't for the racism and if it wasn't to please his racist base? And folks, they've absolutely proved it to us over the last week. Any benefit of the doubt that I ever gave them is now open. I really believe that the passing of Charlie Kirk exposed people more so than anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. There was always an out with the other stuff. To me, there was always a little bit of a benefit of the doubt you could kind of hold on to. You know, when they elected Trump the first time, it was like, okay, you wanted a businessman. Let's see how this goes. And even I said, well, all right, yeah, let's just see what he does. Then we saw what he did. Then we saw January 6th. And even though January 6th was a complete disaster, you still said to yourself, well, they thought they were tricked, but they thought it got stolen from them. Yeah, they were upset. But this last week, they've just completely took the mask off all the way and showed us who they are. And anybody sitting back cheering for this, either A, never read a history book, or B, is a racist, or both. So we're going to be covering the story here from the Midas News Network. And this one was written by J.D. Wolf. Shout out to him. And here we go. Trump honors slaveholding Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Trump boasts of restoring painting of a man who fought for slavery. Trump is boasting on Truth Social that the U.S. Military Academy at West Point has reinstalled a massive portrait of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, a man who enslaved people and led the fight to preserve slavery against the United States. The painting, which depicts Lee in his Confederate uniform, had been removed in 2022 under congressional mandate to strip military institutions of tributes to Confederates, but was recently restored under Trump to the Academy's library. And here's the picture. And on August 27th, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point reinstalled the nearly 20-foot canvas portrait of Confederate General Robert E. Lee at West Point Library on campus. The painting hung in the library for 70 years before it was ordered to be removed as part of the naming commission in 2022 to take down items that commemorate and memorialize the Confederacy. By highlighting the move, Trump is aligning himself with the reinstatement of Confederate imagery at the nation's premier military academy. Lee's legacy is inseparable from slavery and rebellion against the United States. He personally enslaved men, women, and children, and as commander of the Confederate Army, he fought to preserve the system of human bondage. For decades, the image has been used to romanticize the Confederacy and downplay its central purpose, defending slavery. Trump's celebration of the portrait's return is not just about art or history, but a political signal that venerates a figure who led a war to keep people enslaved. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking, especially those of you that aren't from the South, and you recognize that I am. You're probably saying, Brando, you're a Southerner. You know, shouldn't you want to see this stuff remembered? No, I don't, because we grew up in this part of the world with a huge stain on American history, and a history that we worked so hard to overcome and move past. There's a lot of people, and I could go back down the rabbit hole of having all the arguments that I've had with people about this issue. But I've argued that I have bandanas older than the Confederacy. So when people says to me that the Confederacy was part of their heritage, my argument has always been, no, it's a stain on our heritage. And so many of us worked so hard to get past it. Growing up in the South, especially my era, growing up in the 1980s, I can only speak for the time I've been here, but growing up in the 1980s, the Confederate flag was everywhere. And back then, it was on TV shows like The Dukes of Hazzard, which was a family show, and I don't think the show in and of itself was a racist show. But that was celebrated on that TV show, and you had some of my favorite bands flying it behind them in their music, And we were told that it was all part of Southern pride and Southern heritage and just, the South will rise again. And it was a Charlie Daniels song. And it was one of those things where the song was always presented to you as though, well, he's talking about the music. He's talking about the music that comes out of the South. Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with celebrating the great music that came out of the South, because I would argue that we have pumped out some of the greatest country and rock and roll and blues music that ever was. But the older you get and the further away from it you become, and as you learn your history, you just have to run smack dab into a lot of uncomfortable truths. And there's things you have to realize, because you will have people arguing with you for years about, well, it wasn't about slavery. It was about states' rights. And then when you dig a little bit, what was the states' rights for? Well, it was to own a slave. So it's one of those things where you really can't escape it. And you have to face up to it. And there's a lot of us, and we call ourselves blue dots. We call ourselves progressives. I still use the word liberal, even though people have tried to turn it into a dirty word. I still use the word woke, even though people have tried to turn it into a dirty word. But you grow up and you face reality and you try to move forward. And you try to move past it. And one of my biggest pet peeves about all of it, it's one thing to the Southerners that tries to hang on to it. To the Southerners who just cannot let it go. That's one thing. But to the people from the North that comes down here and picks it up and exploits it back against us, that's the part that I've always had the biggest problem with. Donald Trump is not from here. J.D. Vance ain't from here. I don't care how many times he visited his mama, he ain't from here. Okay? Kid Rock is not from here. A lot of these people now that comes down here and latches onto that flag and waves it the proudest, they're not from here. And when you look at what happened on January 6th, there was people carrying the Confederate flag along with the Trump flag. And I've said so many times that the Trump flag, the Confederate flag, and the Don't Tread on Me flag was more out in the open that day, and there was more of those flags than there was the American flag. And no matter how you slice it, the Confederacy was trying to break away from the United States. So you really can't fly those two flags side by side. They don't go together. It doesn't work. But it does if you're trying to hold on to what the Confederacy was for. And we have seen so much over the years. And Charlie Kirk's whole body of work was trying to take us back to that. His entire body of work was trying to do away with every civil rights, with every ounce of progress that we ever made. And there's jackasses out there now writing country songs that says, you can shove your progress up your ass. That's where they're at. That's the type of people they are. And it gives all of us a bad name. The ones of us down here that have really truly fought to move past that and fought to do better and fought for a better America and fought to come out from underneath that, it's just such a stain when you have people capitalizing on it to restore it and to lump you in with it. There's a lot of good people here in Tennessee. There's a lot of good people here in Tennessee that saw through it. There's a lot of good people here in Tennessee that did not want it. And by the way, this really upsets a lot of my extended family when I point this out, but I did some digging, and the majority of my family fought for the Union. I did have a couple of uncles that fought for the Confederacy, but when I really went digging, the majority fought for the Union. And that was something that was, tricky here in East Tennessee and Kentucky, because a lot of people did fight for the Union. And I tell you, the further away now that we get from everything, looking back at it, and I see the way that they're going about glorifying the January 6th people, I say to myself, we're kind of seeing what would have happened if the South would have won. And I might have been born and raised here, but I do not believe in what the South stood for in the Confederacy. I disavow it completely, and I condemn it completely, and I want no part of it. And now we have a president that wants to honor that. And that honor is a dog whistle to racist assholes, to keep it alive. And to keep people like me till my last breath just talking about how wrong that it was and how that we all ain't like that. There's nothing I can say that will ever rewrite history, and I ain't trying to. I'm never trying to. I want to face it, and I want to do better. But to the people that sees this stuff and says, yeah, that's the South for you, They're just a bunch of assholes. Trust me, I am surrounded by a whole bunch of assholes. But they're also, and I won't name their names because I can't really, and besides I would run out of breath, but there is a lot of good people here in Tennessee and here in the South that grew up being taught one thing, but we were smart enough to see through it. We were smart enough to see that they were trying to whitewash history. We were smart enough to see what they were going for. And we did better, and we're trying to do better, and we will continue to do better. But I saw that, and I said to myself, there's no way to slice this one. There's no reason why a man from New York would want to be honoring Robert E. Lee unless it was racism. I cannot think of another reason why he would do it. And to appeal to that base and to send the dog whistles to those kind of people that I got your back. And also that I agreed with the things that Robert E. Lee stood for. That's who MAGA is. And we can never let them off the hook about that. We have to continue to fight to do better. We have to continue to move forward. They can call us whatever names they want to. We won't let them turn those into bad words. We will fight on the right side of history. It's not about the North versus the South. It's about right versus wrong. Robert E. Lee was wrong. I learned that the hard way. That flag hurt people. It was used as a weapon against people. I learned that the hard way. We will do better. We will move forward, and we will not honor assholes like Robert E. Lee. And the only reason Donald Trump is honoring an asshole like Robert E. Lee is to appeal to other assholes.